You know, Stevenson, the further we journey into this pyramid, the more out of my depth I feel. I mean, it's not just the problem of how it was built, but why. Herodotus back in the 8th century was just as stumped as we are. And nobody's come up with any kind of credible theories in over 1,000 years.
You know what I think, Jones? I think this isn't a burial site at all. There's nothing here apart from this stone casket, and that has no lid. It's impossible to have carried a sarcophagus up those passages, and there's no sign of any hieroglyphics or artifacts with links to the afterlife, let alone a record of any having been found.
So, what are you saying?
I think this casket was placed here when the pyramid was built, and used as part of some strange ritual.
Go on.
Well, what if this pyramid has some hidden purpose, undisclosed to this point? What if it wasn't built in 4000 BC at all? What if it's much older and wasn't built by humans?
Hang on. We can't just go throwing irrational ideas about where there are no rational answers to difficult questions. What you're suggesting demands on us accepting that there are other life forms out there more intelligent than we are, and that for some, as yet unknown reason, they came to Earth and built this huge statement in the landscape before disappearing from sight for thousands of years. That's preposterous.
I know it sounds mad, but sometimes we have to think outside the triangle, if you'd pardon the pun. Sometimes even the most rational explanations just can't be backed up. How did the man who built the Great Pyramid move over 1 million blocks of stone, over 60 kilometers, and cut the facing stones so accurately you can't squeeze a razor blade between the two blocks, at a time when they didn't have technology to cut through granite? The simplest and most logical explanation is that he didn't.
Didn't you say these were new batteries? They can't possibly be running low just yet.
I checked them myself before I got Cardew and the others to bring them up here.
Oh well, there's no time to get them replaced now. Did you see those tourists waving at us outside? It's not long before we have to move out and let them back in. My God, what's that noise?
We could run away from here as fast as we can, but something tells me that would be futile. Oh, I feel transfixed.
There's no going back now. This is it, Stevenson.
I can't thank you enough for making this possible, Jenkins. It's been a long struggle to get here, but I feel confident that finally I'm going to get some answers as to what actually happened to my father and his assistant.
What was his name again?
Hugh Stevenson.
Ah, I see. Well, I hope you're right, Jones. But to be honest, I'm more interested in finding some of the hidden treasure that has never been recovered from this tomb. We could be on the verge of discovering another Tutankhamun. You could be the next Howard Carter.
Well, we'll see, but I've always made it clear to you that such an outcome is quite unlikely. Herodotus says that this was built by Khufu, or Cheops as he was always known, but we now know that the dates are all wrong for that to be the case. It's highly likely no one was ever buried here.
Listen here, Jones. I'm not really interested in the history of it all. I'll leave you to get your chops round that. I just want to know what's behind some of those walls in there, and with your help, I'm going to find out. If, in the process, it becomes clear what happened to your old man along the way, even better, I suppose.
Well, look what the Sphinx has dragged in.
What's wrong with you, man? Take cover! What is that thing?
Keep your fez on, Jenkins. Have you never seen a police telephone box before?
Hello everyone. I'm just carrying out some market research for BT Infinity and wondered whether you'd be interested in our latest product, Infinity and Beyond. It promises galactic coverage without a hint of that annoying egg timer thingy. Oh. Okay, never mind. You know, you should never ignore a coincidence. And I think I've just found one.
I was expecting the Doctor.
Oh yes, you've not seen me like this before, have you, Henry? Sorry, I was too busy focusing on that great big coincidence.
Are you his latest travelling companion?
For goodness sake, Professor, you never used to be this slow. I know you lot have pudding brains, but surely you haven't forgotten our close shave in the state chamber already.
Will someone tell me who this nobody is? Does he work for BT or the National Health Service? And what the hell's he doing out here in a telephone box, reminiscing about some male bonding ritual?
Ah, Clara. Finally a face I recognise.
Professor Jones. Hello again. Wasn't expecting to see you here.
No, of course not. But then that is the whole point as far as I'm concerned. I don't just bump into old acquaintances when I set the TARDIS to take us to the next piece of the Skovox Blitzer. So what's going on? Oh, and by the way, if you're about to do what I think you are, you're on the verge of making the biggest mistake of your life.
What the Doctor means is we have reason to believe that there is something very sinister about this wonder of the ancient world.
That's the Doctor?
I've been regenerated and remastered. Do you like the new togs and my regionalist accent? Refined Glaswegian, or New Age Rennie Mackintosh, as I like to call it, but without the ubiquitous moustache. But anyway, I've told you that we're here looking for the fifth of one of the most dangerous robots created in the history of mankind. What brings you to Egypt, Henry?
Well, I'm not quite sure I understand how that man can be the Doctor, Clara, but I'll take your word for it. As for me, well, I'm here to see if I can find out what befell my father in 1957.
Tell us more.
He was a famous Egyptologist and visited this site in 1957. 3 days into his work, he disappeared without trace, as did his colleague Hugh Stevenson, along with all the equipment they'd installed in the King's chamber.
I remember the case well. Never told it was the same Jones family, though. I mean, in fairness, there are just so many to keep up with. If I recall correctly, in the absence of any evidence to the contrary, it was decided they must have been done away with by one of the underground brotherhoods that still protects the ancient ways.
Yes, the great minds of the day simply accepted that it was Khufu's curse, and that they had come to a sticky end for daring to disturb the ancient burial ground.
So, it is a burial ground then, after all?
No, I didn't say that. That's what the press said at the time, and it made for a jolly good story. But it's not one that I was ever convinced by.
So that's why you're here, to find out more.
Precisely. You see, Stevenson believed that the Great Pyramid was never intended to be the last resting place of any pharaoh, but that it had another, more significant purpose.
And he wanted to find out what that was.
Yes. We know from Stevenson's diary that he thought that a water channel, like a moat, fed from the lake, originally surrounded the pyramid. He thought the underground chamber was really a pump that maintained the level of the moat, but what he couldn't get his head around was why it was necessary to keep the pyramid's exterior so protected. It would have been impregnable. The sunlight reflected from its surface must have made it stand out like a giant light bulb, visible from hundreds of miles.
From space as well as from Earth. This is beginning to worry me. What happened to the water then?
Well, Stevenson believed that a drought or something else caused the underground supply that fed the pump room from Lake Muiris to dry up. Without the water, the pyramid would have been vulnerable, and the priests using it would have had to stop. It is logical to suppose that the pyramid's defences were then breached at some subsequent point. The sealed doors were opened up, and it was ransacked. The rest, as they say, is history.
This is all very interesting, but my men and I need to get on with what we were brought here to do. So, if you'll excuse me, Doctor.
No.
I'm sorry?
I'm not letting you and your little toy soldiers anywhere near Khufu's chamber.
How dare you? You're not my mother, Doctor.
No, I'm not. And you won't find her or any other mummy in that pyramid either.
You know, Doctor, you're really beginning to irritate me. You know why we're here, but perhaps it's time you told us what brings you and your strange blue box to Egypt. What's all this rubbish about a deadly robot?
Ah yes, well, you see, I'm looking for something too. Something that must be found and retrieved at all costs.
We think something that doesn't really belong here may be hidden inside the pyramid. We've tracked it down by following the very faint tracking signal it's sending out.
So, you're bounty hunters too. What exactly is this thing? Surely there are others around here looking for it as well.
No, we're not, and yes, there are, which is why we've got to find it first. We've got a head start because we've already found 2 pieces of the jigsaw.
Our homing signal, therefore, is stronger. However, it is still vital that we find the next piece of the jigsaw before anyone else gets the chance.
Is this thing worth anything?
What is it with you human beings? You'd risk your lives for a quick buck. Take my advice. Take your men home and leave this to me. Once we've got what we need, we'll be gone too.
Listen, I don't know who you are, and I don't care, but it's taken us a long time to get to this point. We've only got a couple of days before they let the tourists back onto the site, and the place will be crawling with staff, guards, and rubberneckers. So we need to make the most of the time we've got. Jones can look for his dad, and you can go searching for the next bit of your jigsaw. But my men and I are going to get on with what we came here to do.
What if we were to tell the authorities why you're really here, Jenkins? I'm sure it's not what it says on the permit.
Yes, Doctor, I'd wager you're right. But you can't tell them if you're coming with us.
Well, now you put it like that, I guess we'd be happy to come along. But I think you're making a really big mistake.
This is where the trail runs dead, Doctor. My father and Stevenson were here. Their footprints were found together with their notebooks and a few possessions, but nothing else. It was also clear that there had been some kind of struggle, and their men reported hearing distant cries.
Let me guess. When they got here, there was no trace of your father, Stevenson, or any of their equipment.
Exactly.
Which means...
Exactly.
Exactly?
Exactly.
That they're still here?
But where? Am I missing something?
You said it. Nobody simply disappears.
The Sonic's showing up a number of unidentified life forms and a whole host of unearthly technology in there, all hidden from the naked eye via a perception filter. Whatever took your father, Jones, is inside that chamber. And it's watching us.
My God, who are you? What are you?
We have waited long for this moment. Ever since the water generator failed our systems, we have been in cryogenic sleep, knowing that one day power will be brought to us to resume our work.
What generator? What work?
This pyramid houses a subterraneous water pump generator that fed off the water of Lake Moasis. The chamber below the pyramid compresses the water and uses it to flood the moat around the pyramid, cutting it off from human intervention. However, our systems had not factored in such dramatic changes in the water levels caused by drought. Work was never completed on the generator or recycling chamber.
What recycling chamber?
The recycling chamber that you are standing in. You will be recycled once we have finished the generator, and you will become one of us.
Recycled? What do you mean?
Your life systems will be technologically enhanced. As a Cyberman, you will be granted eternal life. You will be upgraded and become like us.
But what if we refuse?
Your desires are irrelevant. We were forced to crash land here and we were caught in a meteorite storm. We were carrying a valuable cargo to a distant planet. But since our spaceship was damaged, we had no way of completing our mission. This pyramid was built on top of our crash site. We promised eternal life to the pharaoh and his priests, providing that they brought us warriors to recycle. The subjects were brought to the pyramid to spend the night in the king's chamber. They were made to lie in the sarcophagus, and once they were contained, they were upgraded.
They became like you?
That is correct. However, some returned to the real world once we'd implanted a control device in their brain cortex to connect them to the Siberiad and procure further subjects.
You mean people? Human beings with their lives and aspirations before them? My God, how many people did you capture? Where are they now?
Your response is typical of elementary human thinking. The Cyberman army sleeps beneath this pyramid, awaiting the time when we can resume our voyage. We cannot begin colonizing the Earth until we can control its invincible power for ourselves. Without the water to drive the generator, our work had to stop. But now we have your batteries, we can resume processing. We will begin with you. It is the Doctor.
You're expecting me? No, why didn't that surprise me? Let me guess. You figured out that if we waited long enough, sooner or later I'd come searching for the Skovox. It's just taken me a few thousand years too many to get here.
Time is an irrelevance, Doctor. Cybermen do not age. Once we are in possession of your time machine, we can resume our mission at the same point from which it was aborted.
Time travel is impossible. And besides, I see no time machine round here. I suggest you get out of my way, or I'll have to force you to.
Don't be a fool, man. Put that down at once.
Do as he says. You don't know what you're dealing with, Jenkins.
I don't take orders from any of you. I came here to find lost treasures, not to be confronted by tin pot soldiers. Men, fire at will!
You killed him.
That is correct. These Earthlings of whom you are so fond, Doctor, have no intelligence, no logic. Join the Brotherhood and your logic will be enhanced.
Brotherhood? Either you've gone completely mad, or you just let something slip that you shouldn't have.
Of course. It all makes sense now. The Brotherhood of King Khufu, the proprietor of this pyramid. So let me guess. Your ship crashed here, I don't know, 2,500 years BC, and you strike a dodgy deal with the ruling pharaoh, something along the lines of, "We grant you eternal life." The Great Pyramid is thus built around your ship, and a whole cover story is set in motion, enabling you to secretly recruit more spare parts to swell your damaged ranks.
You're saying they lured ordinary people to this very chamber to convert them?
That's how the Cybermen roll, Henry. They're upgraded versions of humans, or occasionally Mondasians.
Doctor, is that what happened to my father and Stevenson? They became like this?
2 humans by the names of Jones and Stevenson came here 60 years ago. Their batteries gave us the power to reboot our generator. Their bodies were also rendered useful. They were the first humans to be converted since the days of Khufu.
And presumably once Khufu ceased being of any use to you, you disposed of him as well, hence why his body was never recovered.
Khufu never ceased being of use to us. He remains a vital asset to the Cybermen. All hail your king and leader. All hail Cyber Leader Khufu.
Classic. You converted him too.
The Doctor. I have learned much about you during my sleep from the Siberiad.
Have you now? Surely that's enough to put you off.
Your arrival was anticipated. Your TARDIS is required.
Is it really? Well, that's a shame, 'cause I'm not gonna let you get your grubby hands anywhere near it.
If you do not give us your TARDIS, there will be consequences for this planet. Statistics show that you will do anything to protect this world.
Not anything. Don't underestimate what I'm capable of.
Fail to comply with our demands, and we will release a plague of cybermites that will spread across the whole of this chamber. They will convert you in an instant.
If I give you my TARDIS, will you leave the Earth alone? Do you promise to go and never return?
You have our word.
Doctor, you can't. The consequences would be catastrophic.
You must let me do this my way, Jones. You too, Clara. Don't intervene in any way, or your own lives will be compromised. Got that?
Bring the Skovox leg here. Our time has come. Your loyalty to your friends has cost you dearly, Doctor. Emotions are a weakness.
What about your makeshift cyber army?
They are of no use to us anymore. They will remain. If you try to follow us, Doctor, we will return and activate them. We understand that you're already in possession of 2 legs of the Skovox Blitzer. Once we have located the final piece, we will be invincible.
Doctor, do something. You can't let them win.
I won't risk you, Clara, or this planet, Henry. It is better that the Cybermites are never released, the converted humans never reactivated. Remember, Clara, that whilst there's life, there's hope.
Clara, make him listen.
Are you absolutely sure about this, Doctor?
100%.
Whose side are you on, Doctor? What have you done?
Please, Professor, just calm down. Everything will become clear in a moment.
But you've achieved nothing. You just brought them back here.
I used the sonics to preset the coordinates for the pump room underneath this very pyramid into the TARDIS's memory banks some 4,500 years ago. It will have dematerialized too late for the Cybermen to realize where they are, leaving them stranded there. In a couple of moments, the workers outside will open the sluice gate and the chamber will be flooded. And if my memory serves me right, cybernetic technology and water don't mix. A simple but brilliant solution, if you don't mind me saying so.
But wouldn't that create a paradox? The Cybermen wouldn't have been able to build their army. Dr. Jones would not have disappeared and...
There would be no threat to the Earth now or at any time in the future. The programmed Egyptians would have been left trying to remember why they had built the pyramids and attempting to preserve their half-uncertain beliefs in the afterlife. Without the technological know-how, they stopped building pyramids and moved their burial rites to the Valley of the Kings. Of course, there is still a little tidying up to be done, but that shouldn't take too long.
What about the Skovox leg?
Still in the TARDIS, along with the other two. We're getting closer and closer to finding them all.
Doctor, my head. It's like my memories are changing, morphing. What's happening?
Our timelines are being rewritten, Professor. It's the paradox. However, having just lived through what is now an alternative series of events, we have the distinction of remembering every bit of it, as well as the new timeline.
I don't think I'll ever get my head around any of these time travel shenanigans, you know, Doctor. Alternate realities. I don't know. It was bad enough having my mind played with by a Zygon duplicate. I seem to gain an extra set of memories every time we meet, Doctor.
He has that effect on most people, Professor. One time I had to enter the Doctor's time stream in order to save him. It split me up into millions of splinters, echoes if you like, all over space and time. I still dream about what they all get up to.
It's an extraordinary thing. However, this new set of memories isn't much better than my old one. You could say it's even worse that I now know that my father died of malaria on this same expedition. Stevenson too. You saved the Earth from the Cybermen, Doctor, but as a consequence I now miss my father more than ever. All those years I spent wondering what became of him, well, now I know. All of a sudden, all at once. And it hurts.
Doctor, do you think we could,
Well, I suppose we owe Professor Jones a favour for all that he's been through. I'm sure we could arrange something.